Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and let's just jump right into the video topic today. Today, we're going to be talking about offer sheets because I don't really think a lot of people know the logistics and the ramifications of them, what they really mean, how they work, and how they affect everything else in the league. So we're going to strip it back and we're going to go back to the basics and we're going to learn together here today what an offer sheet actually is. And guys, when I said we were stripping it back, we're really going back to the basics here. This is the definition that's provided by the NHL. An offer sheet is a signed and binding contract offer presented to an RFA whose rights are currently held by another club. Any team can submit an offer sheet with the goal of signing that player. Okay, so with that understanding, let's bump it up a little bit and let's talk about the when. When can they be submitted? So they could be submitted this season on June 26th, which is when that special talking period that opens up after the draft and before July 1st begins, when free agency officially kicks off. So now that we got the what and the how down packed, let's bump it up a little bit further and talk about the how. So let's say you offer sheet somebody. You then owe the corresponding compensation, which is set and determined by the amount of money you're paying that player. So let's just go ahead and throw those stats up there on the screen. And I don't think a lot of people are too interested in the lower tiers, but I think a lot of people are interested in those upper tiers. So I'm just going to talk about the $6.3 million tier and above, because that's when you're really getting into some serious compensation where you could potentially be owing another team a first, a second, and a third, or two first, a second, and a third, or four unprotected first round picks, which would be insane. That's right. All of the first round picks here, you lose the ability to protect those picks. So if you offer sheet somebody and surrender your first round pick, and then you sustain a bunch of injuries, which is very, very possible. The Tampa Bay Lightning were Stanley Cup favorites the one year. Stamkos broke his leg, or he had that huge knee injury, and then he had the blood clots, and he just couldn't go. He couldn't do it, and the Tampa Bay Lightning ended up missing the playoffs that year. So, I mean, and especially with the lottery system now, if you miss the playoffs, that's not just a mid-first round pick anymore. That's an opportunity to be the first overall pick, the second overall pick, or even the third overall pick. So, I mean, giving up an unprotected first round pick for any player in the league, aside from a few, is a very, very risky bit of business. But let's say you really, really love a player and you've deemed them worth an unprotected first round pick, or maybe multiple unprotected first round picks, and you offer sheet them. What happens next? Well, the player has to actually accept your contract offer for anything to happen further. That's right. That's something that I think a lot of people are actually missing, is that the player has to actually want to play for your team in order for the offer sheet to actually mean anything, right? I mean, because I don't think a lot of people are really taking that into consideration. But then let's just say that that player says, you know what? I like what you guys got going on there. I'll sign this deal. Then what happens? Well, the team that owns that player's rights currently would then have 7 days to match the offer or take the compensation. And they are obligated to the full details of the contract that you offer them if they decide to match it. So this is where a lot of people are kind of saying teams can kind of mess around with other teams' cap situation, but I don't think that that's a good idea, and I'll explain that a little later on in the video. So now that we have a little bit of a better understanding of what an offer sheet is and how they work, let's take a look at the history of them. So the last time an offer sheet was submitted, not necessarily accepted, and there wasn't a transfer of picks involved, the last time one was just attempted was 2013. So let that sink in for a little bit. The last time an offer sheet was attempted, not accepted, there was no transfer of picks involved. People were still doing the Harlem Shake. Thrift Shop by Macklemore just came out. And if you don't know what either of those things are, then that tells you all you need to know about them. And the player in question and the two teams were Ryan O'Reilly, the Colorado Avalanche, and the Calgary Flames. Ryan O'Reilly actually accepted the offer sheet in that instance, but Colorado matched it, retained his services for, I believe, 2 seasons is what the Calgary Flames offered him. So let's talk about the last successful offer sheet, which was Dustin Penner in 2007, and the two teams were the Anaheim Ducks and the Edmonton Oilers. And the compensation involved was a first, a second, and a third round pick. And if you don't really know who Dustin Penner is, then that'll tell you how well that really worked out for the Edmonton Oilers. So I promised you guys earlier in the video that I would tell you why offer sheets are dumb. So this is going to be the why it's dumb segment of the show. And if you guys are interested in more of these types of segments where I'm just a little bit overly critical and I kind of rip into something, smash that like button or let me know down in the comment section. Maybe this can be a regular thing or just something that I do every once in a while. So this is the first official why it's dumb segment. So the first reason why it's dumb is it drives up the price for all other RFAs in the league. So let's talk about a very real hypothetical, or a hypothetical that a lot of people have been throwing around, and that's Lou Lamoriello wanting revenge for Kyle Dubas plucking John Tavares out of the island. So let's say that were to happen. Let's say Lou Lamoriello wants revenge. He offer sheets Mitch Marner to this ridiculous contract. What are the ramifications for him after that? Well, he's got Matthew Barzal to sign next season. So whatever number that he would potentially hand out to Mitch Marner, that's the new number for Matthew Barzal. Whenever a UFA comes out and signs a big contract, that's the new president. And if you want to drive up the price for RFAs, just send out an offer sheet, because then the guy that you offer sheet, that's going to be the new precedent for every single RFA moving forward. So let's move on to the second reason why they're dumb, and that's general managers don't want to offend other general managers. I mean, when Dustin Penner was offer sheeted in 2007, this is a real story. Keep in mind, the NHL is a professional place of business, and I mean, it is based off of a children's game. But when the Edmonton Oilers offer sheeted Dustin Penner, Brian Burke actually threatened to beat up the general manager of the Edmonton Oilers. That's right. There was almost a fist fight, and it would have been legendary because Brian Burke's just in there like truculence, and he would have thrown fists and haymakers and stuff like that, and it would have been hilarious. So out there exists an alternate reality where Kyle Dubas is this egomaniac, and he's just filled with rage, and let's say that Lou Lamoriello were to offer sheet Mitch Marner. There's an alternate reality out there somewhere among the cosmos where Kyle Dubas just freaks out and beats up Lou Lamoriello, and there's like a WWE kind of revenge style match set up where there's like a Hell in the Cell set up. So I mean, they don't want to offend their friends. So the third reason and the last reason why offer sheets are dumb is because, all right, you might have to overspend a little bit to sign a UFA, but the only thing that you're sacrificing in that situation, would be cap space, right? With an RFA, you're overpaying for that player, sacrificing cap space, and giving up draft capital. And when you're looking around the league and you're an executive, cap space, number one, by far, is the most valuable asset in this league. And then number two is probably draft capital. Number two is probably elite players, and then number three is probably draft capital. But you can't afford to give up the first and second or the first and third most valuable thing in this league for a player. And very, very few players in this league are actually worth what is it, the two highest tiers, 2 first, a second, and a third round pick, or 4 first round picks. Remember, those first round picks are unprotected, so they do have a possibility of becoming lottery picks. So to wrap up this video, I'm going to answer the concluding question, which, I mean, that's the reason why you clicked on this video, right? It's all about that right there, the Toronto Maple Leaf logo. It's all about that right there, not necessarily this. That's a different sport. Should we be worried? And when I say we, it's Leaf fans, because apparently only Leaf players are susceptible to offer sheets. Nobody else. Don't ever talk about offer sheets when it comes to Mikko Rantanen or Sebastian Aho or Kyle Connor or Zach Werenski or any other notable RFA that's on the market. No, don't do that. Let's just go ahead and throw this tweet up on the screen. Woof. I'm gonna make my own sound effects here, and this is ridiculous. I mean, are you reading that? I mean, I'm not reading it because I don't have it up on the screen, but I do remember it. Teams around the league are afraid of the Toronto Maple Leafs and what they would do if they had 4 first-round picks and all that cap space. That says everything that you need to know that this is an actual legitimate threat. You don't want to piss off the galactic empire of the NHL. You don't want Kyle Dubas to put a target on your back. You don't want to do... He has a Death Star. He'll execute Order 66.
They blew up the Death Star twice, you know.
I know how that movie ends. Don't tell me that. But let's just focus on the thing. The larger conversation to be made is that the over prevailing thought should be from this video is that they're dumb. They're dumb, and it's not gonna happen. Not with the Leafs, not with any other team. And when one isn't submitted this year, they're officially retired. That's it. They should be removed from the CBA. It should never be an option. It should never be a thing again. Because if it doesn't happen this year, it's never going to happen. Chris Johnson is putting this at like a 0% chance. It's a 3 on the panic scale from Chris Johnson. I know he's got ice in his veins and he doesn't panic, but I mean, I don't think we should either, right? If Chris Johnson's saying it, if Bob McKenzie's saying it, if Elliot Friedman is saying it, those are the really respectable guys out there, and I think that we should be selective of who we're listening to and what we're putting value into. So, I'm going to close out the video now. And I'm just going to say thank you for watching. I hope you have an amazing rest of the day whenever you're watching this. An amazing rest of the week whenever you're watching this. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe. It does help out the channel a lot. Lets me know that you guys are enjoying the content. And it would mean a lot to me if you would. So, take care.